Today's apologist claim: design is evidence of a designer. The entire intelligent design argument ultimately hinges on this one claim, that design is evidence of a designer. So I often like to come back to it and debunk it from different angles. First off, on the surface, the idea appears to make sense. If you find a pocket watch lying on the ground, you presume it was designed by an intelligence because of its complexity and function. And since we see complexity and function in biology, that is evidence that life itself was intelligently designed. That sounds like a reasonable conclusion, but how is it that we know the watch was designed? Well, we've seen watches before and we know all about them. We can see how they're designed and how they are manufactured. We can demonstrate the history of watches since humans first adapted existing technology to create them. But what if we had never seen a watch before? What if we had never seen gears or even objects made of metal? Would we conclude that the watch had been intelligently designed? And how would we do so? Well, we would have to compare it to both natural and technological objects. That's how we normally determine whether something is intelligently designed or not. If the object appears very similar to our own existing technologies, then it seems reasonable to conclude that it was intelligently designed. On the other hand, if the object appears very similar to what is found in the natural world, then we can reasonably conclude that the object is natural. And that's where the intelligent design argument falls apart. The very object we are comparing, life itself, is by definition part of the natural world. Sure, the functions of life can resemble biochemical versions of our own mechanical machines, but it's hardly surprising to find humans developing technologies that mimic solutions found in nature. That is the source of inspiration for so many of our devices. The natural weapons possessed by predators and prey inspired us to invent many of our own weapons. Animals floating on vegetation likely inspired us to invent boats. Birds flying inspired us to invent airplanes. And the brain's decision-making processes inspired us to invent computer programming. In other words, some people look at the natural world and see intelligent design because many functions in nature resemble our technologies. But the reality is that many of our technologies were inspired by the natural world in the first place. So of course much of what we see in nature resembles our technologies. And thus one can't use our technologies as evidence for intelligent design in nature. As an analogy, it would be like someone looking at an artist's painting of a sunset, realizing that the painting looks remarkably similar to a natural sunset, and then concluding that paintings of sunsets are evidence that natural sunsets were created by a divine painter. You see the problem? This is yet another reason why the argument from design is based on fallacious reasoning.